are you, sir?
Good, man. How are you doing?
Very nice to meet you.
Yeah, nice to meet you, too.
What is it like running for Vice President of the United States? How crazy is this experience?
It's pretty weird. I was just telling you this earlier, but the first time that I've been in a public spot without Secret Service in the room is right now. So I'm like looking around for these guys because I'm used to just having them.
Republican vice presidential nominee J.D. Vance sat down with popular podcaster Joe Rogan on Wednesday for a lengthy drill session that got him sweating out like never before.
Joe Rogan is set to host Republican Vice President nominee J.D. Vance on his podcast in Austin, Texas on Wednesday. Following the viral success of former President Donald Trump's appearance on the Joe Rogan Experience, Trump's recent 3-hour interview exploded on YouTube with over 39 million views, despite claims the platform was suppressing it. Rogan previously declined a similar offer from Democratic Vice President Kamala Harris, whose team reportedly insisted on Rogan traveling to her and limiting the conversation to an hour.
The friendly and wide-ranging interview came less than a week after Trump held his 3-hour interview with Rogan, whose podcast has more than 17 million YouTube subscribers, and less than a week before Election Day. So what did J.D. Vance and Joe Rogan talk about that got him soaked in sweats?
Right.
In competitive sports, Americans are saying, no. This is crazy. You're causing injury to my kids. We have to stop this.
It not only that, it like ruins chances of getting scholarships. If you were the number one player and then all of a sudden some guy comes along who wears lipstick, now he's the number one girl on the team. Like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
There was a recent pool tournament in England. It's a women's pool tournament, and in the semifinals, 2 guys are playing each other.
Yeah. Well, and it looks, when you see them in the actual swimming pool competing, it looks like the biological males are running at 1.5x speed and everybody else is running at normal speed, right? This is just clearly different.
Yeah.
And to your point about it destroys opportunities for scholarships, I mean, go back to the original reason why we wanted girls' sports, why we have Title IX in the United States of America to begin with. Like, we recognized that competitive sports, like, what does it teach, right? It teaches you how to participate on a team. It teaches you to recognize your own weaknesses and the strengths of your teammates and vice versa, right? Like, I'm the father of a 2-year-old daughter. I want my daughter to learn these important life skills. I don't want her going into athletic competitions where I'm terrified she's going to get bludgeoned to death because we're allowing a 6'1" male to compete with her in sports where you should not have biological males competing.
An early portion of the interview focused heavily on transgender people and transition-related medical care, specifically about gender-affirming care for minors and whether people should be allowed to play on sports teams that match their gender identity. He said as a father of a 2-year-old daughter, he doesn't want her going into athletic competitions where he is terrified she's going to get bludgeoned to death because we're allowing a 6'1" male to compete with her in sports.
I think that, frankly, I wouldn't be surprised if me and Trump won just the normal gay guy vote because, again, they just wanted to be left the hell alone, and now you have all this crazy stuff on top of it that they're like, well, no, we didn't want to give pharmaceutical products to 9-year-olds who are transitioning their genders. We just wanted to be left the hell alone.
Well, a lot of gay guys feel like the whole movement is homophobic, which is ironic because they think that there's people think there's something wrong with being gay, so what you really are is a girl.
Yes.
And they think that a lot of this is being given, these thoughts are being given to gay kids. These kids will just grow up to be gay men, and instead you're getting them to convert their gender.
It's pharmaceutical conversion therapy, right?
And it's profitable.
Vance later argued that he wouldn't be surprised if Trump won the normal gay guy vote because, again, they just wanted to be left the hell alone.
How much did you study the story of the assassin, the attempted assassin? How much have you paid attention to it?
You know what, Crooks or Cooks or whatever the guy's name is in Pennsylvania? I mean, I've read a fair amount about it, and it's pretty bizarre.
It's very bizarre.
It's bizarre they haven't been able to get into his...
Moving forward, they spoke about Trump's assassination attempt. The July 13th assassination attempt came 2 days before Vance was chosen as Trump's VP pick.
My attitude towards it, I started to realize that Trump was thinking pretty seriously about making me his VP nominee probably earlier this year because he would ask me a lot about who I thought the VP nominee should be.
Oh boy.
And I'd give him, exactly. And I'd give him names of people that I thought would be pretty good at it. And a lot of the names that I gave him, he would criticize. And I almost felt like he was inviting me to throw myself out there. But it's funny. The morning that he was shot, Butler, PA was the first time that he and I ever talked about it. So that was a Saturday. Just thinking about it, I guess it was probably June 13th, because I think the convention started June 15th. I go down to Mar-a-Lago that morning, Saturday morning, and I'm talking to him for the first time, because the media would ask me. I was like one of the rumored shortlist candidates. I kept on getting these questions from reporters. Have you ever had this conversation with Trump? And the honest answer was no. Well, Saturday morning that changed, because I go down there and he's like, what do you think? Why should I choose you? Why should I not choose these other guys? Like, we just had a conversation.
Who else was in the running?
I don't really know, actually.
Don't lie.
I really don't know.
Come on, man.
I think that there were a couple of senators that were being considered, a couple of governors, a couple of former cabinet secretaries, but you don't really know, because when Donald Trump sat me down, I mean, he talked about 10 different people that he was thinking about naming, and this was 2 days before he made the selection.
So he's playing like a little, like, let's see how JD thinks game.
Yeah, I think so. And, he told me that he was talking to the gardener at Mar-a-Lago about who the vice presidential nominee should be. And that's one of, I think, Trump's sort of political geniuses, is he talks to everybody about everything. And I was like, well, what did the gardener at Mar-a-Lago have to say about this conversation? Because this really directly impacts my life. And, he basically said, well, I think I'm probably going to pick you, but I don't know, and I'm not ready to make a decision. And then he looks at one of his staff members who's in the room. He's like, actually, wouldn't it really set the world ablaze if we just made the decision today? And so why don't you come up with me, and we'll just do the announcement in Butler, Pennsylvania.
Whoa.
And I said, and of course, not knowing at the time what was going to happen, I was like, absolutely, let's get this over with, because I'm sick of not knowing. Let's just get this thing over with. And then he's like, no, I'm not gonna do it up there. We need to prepare for it better. So look, I'm not saying it's going to be you, but I'm thinking very seriously about it.
Vance revealed on the podcast he had communicated with Trump for some time about who would be the best fit for the vice presidential position, but after much talk, it appears Trump was going to be picked. And this led him to meet with Trump to discuss the appointment on the same day as the Butler rally, with Trump almost bringing Vance along to announce him as his pick.
Shot, the initial reaction is I actually thought they had killed him, because when you first see the video, he grabs his ear and then he goes down. And I'm like, oh my God, they just killed him. And first I was so pissed, but then I go into like fight or flight mode with my kids. I'm like, all right, kids, we were at a mini golf place in Cincinnati, Ohio. I grab my kids up, throw them in the car, go home and load all my guns, and basically stand like a sentry at our front door.
Holy shit.
And that was
He recounted how he grabbed his children and loaded his guns after watching Trump's assassination attempt. Vance added that his immediate response was anger, saying he was so pissed and that he thought Trump had been killed because of how he fell to the ground.
I want to go hang out with Hunter Biden. I may be the only Republican. That dude.
He was like Hunter S. Thompson without the writing talent. That guy went hard. You got to give it to him.
I would bet $100 that Hunter Biden is voting for Donald Trump for president.
It doesn't seem like he likes his dad. It seems like
his dad. I might bet $20 on his dad voting for Donald Trump for president, especially last night after the garbage comment.
Oh yeah,
that guy is trying to help Donald Trump. We're gonna win. I think we're gonna win. But after we win, I'm going to be convinced that Joe Biden was trying to help us the whole time.
Well, he put on the
MAGA hat.
The MAGA hat was crazy.
That was crazy.
When he put on the MAGA hat in front of those guys and they all cheered, and he insisted on keeping the hat, and he took it with him, I think he's...
And what about Biden's garbage comments? Vance joked during the interview that he believes President Joe Biden is trying to help Donald Trump win the election. He referred to comments Biden made earlier in the week that said Trump supporters were garbage. Vance asserted that the comment had to be an attempt to help Trump, given the criticism Biden has since received. After we win, I'm going to be convinced that Joe Biden was trying to help us the whole time. He added that Biden endorsed Harris after he stepped out of the 2024 race in July and has not been a vocal supporter of Harris's campaign ever since.
We focus on the carbon footprint thing, and we don't talk about the fact that there are these massive environmental hazards. It goes back to the distracted politics versus the real stuff. And we should be talking about the real environmental consequences of wind power.
It's one of those things that, again, is much like a religion, where you must stay with the doctrine. You must follow it by the word. Because if you step out of line and say, actually, when you look at these studies, it doesn't really show that the world is warming. It shows that over the last X amount of thousands of years, we're in a gradual cooling period. And that what's really terrifying is global cooling.
Yes.
You know, Randall Carlson, who's an expert in asteroid collisions and the Younger Dryas impact theory, is a fascinating guy. But he says that like the periods in history where we came very close to extinction are like when there's an ice age.
Yes.
Like those are the most terrifying.
That's right.
When there's global warming, you just move to where it's not so warm, and that's what people have done forever.
Well, and you deal with it technologically, right? This is the thing, that the solution to global warming, for however long this warming trend lasts, is to deal with it technologically, right? I mean, if you look at the number of people who die from disasters.
When it comes to talks on climate, Vance asserted that he didn't hold a strong view about whether carbon footprint caused climate change. He noted that it's surprising that the environmental movement in America talks about carbon footprint, and it never talks about other emerging issues like why do we have the highest rates of obesity in the world right now?
Someone sabotaging things like that have trains that contain toxic chemicals. People are terrified about the sabotaging of the grid in particular.
Sure.
That's one that a lot of people have talked about.
Yeah.
That we're very vulnerable.
Yeah.
Like what can be done to sort of shore that up? It seems like cyber attacks are possible, physical attacks are possible.
Yeah.
And if the grid goes down, we have a real problem, right?
We do have a real problem. I mean, look, there's the New York Times or somebody else reported recently that my phone was allegedly hacked by Chinese hackers. And so,
oh, no. What'd they get?
Yeah. I don't think anything.
Nothing? Come on, man. Got anything in there?
We'll find out, man. We'll find out.
Got any memes you probably should have shared with your friends?
Some offensive memes, and me telling my wife to get an extra gallon of milk at the grocery store. I mean, luckily I'm a pretty boring guy, so I don't think that they got really anything.
That's
but,
nice.
We'll find out.
It's nice to be boring if your phone gets hacked.
Yeah,
like,
that's right. That's right. Well, it also, I mean, it's apparently they couldn't get the encrypted messages that were sent, so I'm pretty careful about like making sure I use Signal and iMessage and all that stuff.
That's
anyway.
Great.
So, I mean, look, maybe they got some stuff. We'll find out eventually. I try not to worry too much about shit I can't control. But one thing that came up, by the way, in that, and I'll go back to your question, is about the grid. One thing that came up in that is the way that they hacked, and it was also President Trump's phone apparently too, the way that they hacked our phones is they used the backdoor telecom infrastructure that had been developed in the wake of the Patriot Act. And this is something that I think should be a much bigger part of the controversy over the Patriot Act is when the Patriot Act was passed, like AT&T, Verizon, they had to build all of these systems so that if somebody got a FISA warrant and could hack into a particular phone, the infrastructure actually existed. What I've been told is that infrastructure was used by this Chinese hacker organization called Salt Typhoon, and that's how they got into the Verizon network, and that's how they got into the AT&T network.
What a great name, by the way, Salt Typhoon.
It's a pretty badass name, right? If they have anything on me, I can't be too pissed off at them. At least they named themselves Salt Typhoon.
In the interview, Joe Rogan mentioned the alarming rate of cyber attacks in the U.S., but is Vance aware of this? Vance, however, claimed he is not only aware, but that some Chinese cybercriminals allegedly hacked into his phone with a prominent organization called Salt Typhoon.
I think that she is the Michael Jordan of using as many words as possible to say as little as possible. There's actually a certain gift that she has because you listen to her talk and you're 100, 200 words into it, you're 500 words into it, and you're like, what the hell did she just say? She didn't say anything.
Right.
And that actually, I mean, okay, so yeah, there's a certain political skill in saying a lot without actually saying anything, but it actually worries me about her being president.
And then Rogan talks to Harris. Rogan expressed skepticism about Harris's candidacy for president at several points throughout the podcast. J.D. Vance imitates Kamala's words about building an opportunity economy, because if Americans don't have opportunity, they won't have the chance to be Americans. He pointed out that Kamala is Michael Jordan, who uses as many words as possible to say is slight. There's a particular gift she has. Kamala doesn't have an ounce of curiosity about public policy in this country. He added that's what scares the hell out of him.
Like what vegetarians ate, right? I'm like a meat and potatoes guy from Ohio. and I wanted to make her dinner, and I wanted to really impress her because I was like madly in love with her. And
did you cook beef?
No, the meal that I made her, I'm not proud of this, but I'll tell you, was, you know what crescent rolls are? Those like Pillsbury yeast rolls.
Yeah.
So I rolled out a flat thing of crescent rolls.
They talked about many other things, like the first meal he made for his wife, vegetarian pizza, crescent rolls, raw broccoli, and ranch dressing.
That Bill Gates is convincing us to eat fake meat is they fund all this stuff and they make it about the environment. Well, that's true. But he's trying to.
But everybody, the problem is you look at him and you go, hey, how are you a health expert? This is look at you. The funniest thing ever was when Elon showed a photo of Bill Gates next to a photo of a pregnant man emoji, and he said, if you want to lose a boner real quick. And that's a wild boy. You imagine
Elon is funny as shit, man. He's
funny as shit.
Yeah,
Getting
he
dunked
really
on
is.
by that guy's got to suck because you can't even say he's a dumbass.
Right.
You know?
That's right. Yeah. You can say many things. You can't say he's a dumbass.
You get dunked on by one of the smartest guys alive. But the point is, like, Bill doesn't look good. He looks terrible. He's aging way harder than Trump. Like, it doesn't, whatever you're doing, don't eat like that anymore. Like, go to an actual doctor. Like, I don't know what you're doing. Who's telling you to eat your fake meat? You look like shit.
Yeah,
so you can't give
right.
advice. This is crazy. You
That's
can't give
exactly
advice
right.
about health.
Yeah.
And about Bill Gates' diet, and eating fake meat has made him age more complicated than Trump. Talking about aging, they both agreed that Trump looks the same and fits the position, which makes him suitable for the seat.